Welcome into the Thunder Basketball Universe presented by COOP Ale Works. Happy December 1st. We've got 2 months of basketball under our belts now. The first quarter of the season is behind us. But Gallo, this past couple of weeks really has been absolute craziness for you and I. There's been a lot happening.
Yeah, if we look a little bleary-eyed, don't hold it against us. Last week, we had an incredible opportunity and incredible week. Our good friend, our dear partner on the broadcast, Michael Cage, he had a bad case of laryngitis. He couldn't broadcast, and you all know Michael Cage. Michael Cage without a voice is a travesty for all of us. It must have been killing him.
Yeah.
But what that meant, Paris, is that you and I stepped in and we're kind of co-analysts on the broadcast in addition to doing kind of our normal sideline duties as well.
Yep. So we called 3 games on headsets with Chris Fisher here at inside of Paycom Center. But 2 of those games, we were also on headsets that morning for the OKC Blue. So we called 2 Blue games last week. We called 3 Thunder games. I had a couple of Thunder Live hosting duties that I had to do. And we had a pair of overtime games on back-to-back occasions and a partridge in a pear tree.
Yes, exactly. So we're really gearing up for the Christmas spirit here. But, it goes to show how much is happening in the Thunder universe.
Yes.
And that we're very lucky and grateful to kind of have our hands in a lot of parts of it. And that's not even to mention all of the great community work that the Thunder has been doing during the holiday assist. It's 15 straight years of holiday assist outreach events. And so, we got to see some great smiles from people in the community as well last week. And went on the road for a few games, that quick 2-game trip, and now back in OKC for 1 game before we ship off again.
All right, so let's recap what happened with the Thunder, because we've been gone for a little bit, and there's just between Thanksgiving and Michael Cage being out, we've got some catching up to do for you on the TBU. So don't worry, we got you. So Gallo, I kind of want to talk about those 2 overtime games for the Thunder, because they were 2 very different results, but one fed into the other. The Thunder fell in that first game against Denver in overtime. And then the very next game against Chicago, going to overtime, learn the lessons, and come out with a win.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a few moments like that this season where the Thunder has really had some one-to-one learning opportunities. Yep. I think back to that inbounds play late where Lou Dort fouled Brook Lopez. Yep. And then exactly a week later, the Thunder gets that exact same scenario. Lou decides to face guard Bradley Beal.
Right.
The Thunder gets the stop to win the game after that Shea game winner. Very similar circumstances where the Thunder goes into overtime and just doesn't quite have the pace, the tempo, the juice in the fourth quarter or in overtime. Offensively, you're not running, the same type of offense you did earlier in the game to get a lead. And then you get 2 nights later, you get the Chicago Bulls coming into town, and the Thunder did an incredible job of keeping that foot on the gas the entire time.
Yeah, that game, it was incredible to hear afterwards what the guys had taken lessons from that first game against Denver and just immediately applied them and didn't lose any juice. I mean, that's 2 games back to back where you're adding an extra 5 minutes on the clock. Guys playing, 36, 40 minutes on back to back occasions, but the Thunder didn't lose any juice in any instance during that stretch, which was pretty impressive and speaks to the young legs of this team and how valuable that is.
Yeah, I mean, this is a group that is built this way for a reason, is to be able to be competitive every single minute of every game. And this is a deep team. Mark has talked all year about we like everybody, we need everybody. And when you've got 2 overtime games, when you've got 4 games in 6 nights, and we've got 3 games in 4 nights over 2 kind of separate spans here in the same week, this is exactly why you need to be able to go to a lot of different guys. I think as we talk about last night's game as well against San Antonio, there's an exact indication of that. Every single player who was dressed ended up playing and played a factor in the Thunder's win against the Spurs here at home too.
Everybody's always ready on this team. And before we go away from these overtime games, because you and I were on headsets for this, so that it created kind of this weird dynamic. This is a little behind the scenes for you guys back at home. We were on the headsets, and the clock's winding down, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and it's still a really close game. Nick still has to go get a walk-off interview if we win.
Right.
And I've got to go upstairs to get ready for post-game, because the post-game Thunder Live desk is upstairs on the concourse.
Right. Michelob Ultra Club, right?
Yeah, the Michelob Ultra Club. And so I've got a little bit of a hike if I'm going to get upstairs to the desk before the clock ends. And so on both occasions, I leave with like 2 minutes left in the game. So it's just Chris and Nick sitting there on headsets calling the game. And in both times, the game goes into overtime, added extra 5 minutes. And I'm like, I didn't even need to run up here and like risk my life on these stairs to like make it to the desk.
What kind of looks did you get from the fans as you were like sprinting up the stairs away from the game?
I know.
With 2 minutes left in this like tight game.
I think the fact that I had like my laptop and my like bulging notebook with me, I think all of that indicated that, all right, she's got some work she's got to do. And hopefully they were more focused on the game than on me, but I'm just glad I didn't create any more attention by falling down those stairs, because I think I was wearing heels in both of those games. So that was kind of dangerous.
Yeah, and you know, in my part, I'm used to, with about a minute or 45 seconds left to go in the game, I'm heading over to the corner where right next to the Thunder's bench to be able to rush onto the floor and make sure that I grab whichever player I'm going to get for a walk-off interview. So that was a really interesting dynamic to be, you know, still sitting there with Chris, providing some analysis or context, you know, as he's sort of calling the action. But then knowing at a moment's notice, especially if it's one of those scenarios where the final seconds just play out and there's no timeout for me to go run over there, that I've got to hit that cough button to make sure that my
kill the mic,
kill the mic, and you know, put my headset down real fast and go sprint to the corner. And I do remember I felt like Barry Sanders, like bobbing and weaving people as soon as that buzzer. As soon as it was clear that the Thunder was going to be able to like dribble that ball out.
Yeah.
I put it down and I went between all these people, got to the corner, and I got onto the court for that walk-off interview.
I was really expecting you to be like, all right, let's send it over to Nick Gallo, who's standing by with our player of the game. Thanks so much, Nick. Appreciate it.
Throw that football to myself.
Exactly. Exactly. All this to say, big shout out to Chris Fisher, Eric Date, and Steve Melton, who made our lives so easy having to step in a moment's notice for that.
Yeah, it was such a comfortable environment and situation. We work with such an amazing crew. And I think it was really very comforting that these games were all at home also. That, you know, we had our engineers and our audio guys, Chase, our audio tech was there, and
Coach, our stage manager.
Yeah, exactly. Brandon, who helps with stats, like all these people that work very comfortable with working side by side with for every home game, regardless of what role we're in. We were very at ease. And frankly, we have you all to thank as viewers and people who have helped really carry this podcast forward in terms of momentum, because Paris and I have so much experience now talking to each other, just shooting back and forth ideas and things that we're seeing about the game. And so when Chris Fisher did just like such a great job of kind of teeing us up and setting us up with talking points, it felt really natural just to talk to you and talk to Chris about the game.
It was just a 3-hour podcast with live action. It was awesome. It was awesome. Yeah. So really, really appreciated that experience and that opportunity, and just added to reasons why we love being here and this job. It's so fun. Sure. And we're so glad that Michael Cage is now back because we missed him. We definitely missed him.
And a good reminder, tune into the OKC Blue games. We'll be calling a bunch of the games at home this season. So definitely tune in there. That's fun. Those doubleheader days. Yep. We live in this building. It's like those are like 13, 14-hour days inside this building. But it's awesome. You know, we've talked about it feeling sort of like, you know, being either at like an AAU tournament or being an NCAA like first round, second round, where it's like, hey, there's just basketball all day and we're camped out. Yeah, and I mean, it's a lot of basketball, and we're watching guys, Jalen Williams, Jay Will from Arkansas, Usman Jang was down there while we were calling those games, and Lindy and then Eugene. Yeah. All these guys are getting really, really valuable reps down there, and so you get to see the work that they're putting in and how it pays off when they come and play for the Thunder. Yeah, and Usman's a perfect example of that. I'm sure that we'll get to him here in just a minute, but yeah, I mean, this is a tried and true method for the Thunder. We've seen it work. I mean, just look at Alexei Pokusevsky this year. This guy spent 2 large stints in the G League over the last 2 seasons. Both have helped him immensely. Trey Mann is another player that's benefited from that as well. So good stuff from the Blue. Yeah, lots of great stuff. What do you say we get into the Thunder's road trip after that crazy homestand that they had? Let's do it. Yeah, okay. Let's do it. Yeah. So after beating the Bulls in overtime, that was the first night of actually a home road back-to-back for the Thunder. Kind of a really tough stretch here where they went from Oklahoma City to play Houston at Houston. They fell in that game, and they just didn't
like how that game went. They weren't really playing to their style of play, to their identity that they want to hang their hats on. And they really kind of flipped the switch in the New Orleans game. Now, they fell short in New Orleans. They didn't get the win.
Right.
But overall in that game, they played to the style and the way, especially defensively, that they wanted to play.
Yeah, Shea told us that the Thunder got the car back on the road in that game against New Orleans. And it's really true. They only allowed 105 points. Wonderful defensive showing to go up against a team that was really leaning into its paint attacks. As Mark Daigneault said, like they wanted to jam the ball into the rim every single time. Zion Williamson, Jonas Valanciunas, those two guys, they were going to lean on that brand and identity the whole game. And the Thunder did a really nice job of trying to really stymie that really tough attitude in terms of preventing them from getting into the lane repeatedly. Of course, some outside shots went down for New Orleans as well, but the Thunder gave itself a chance in crunch time, made a really nice comeback.
Yeah.
Ultimately, just, seemed like every big time bucket that the Thunder got, the Pelicans were able to have a response. It was a big time and one for Zion. It was actually his only free throw of the game,
which was a testament to the defense that the Thunder was playing on him, and particularly a guy like Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who had the matchup and a lot of minutes against Zion Williamson, which is a little bit of kind of a different matchup that J. Rob is used to. He's used to, having to go up against guys who are much bigger than him, like height-wise. Yeah. And here's a guy in Zion Williamson who's just straight power and force and can get downhill just at his will. And so really a good showing by J. Rob to hold his own in that matchup.
Yeah, he is one of the guys that really demonstrates like why fundamentals matter at this stage. And he talked about after that game, like we gave ourselves a chance to win because we committed to the things that are like process based for us. And if you do that, if you commit to that style, you're going to put yourself in a position to win. It doesn't mean that you're going that you deserve the right to win every single night, because this is the NBA. It's really hard. The other team's doing the exact same thing, but you give yourself enough cracks to win at the end of the night by playing this way. And more often than not, it's going to lead to good outcomes and good results. And I think that New Orleans game was the perfect precursor to the way that the Thunder ended up playing as it came back home. So really nice to see the Thunder put together that effort in response to what happened on Saturday in Houston, and be able to, we've talked about the game-to-game learning. Yeah. And, this was sort of on a more macro level of like, how do you respond to not just something like within the game, but the game overall of like how you approach the game. How do you respond to that and do it better?
Yeah. So from that game, the Thunder returned home to play the Spurs. And in the first half of that game, it really didn't look like the response that the Thunder wanted coming out of that New Orleans game. First of all, San Antonio was shooting the lights out from behind the arc and from the field. They were around 64% from the field in the first half. They put up 77 points in the first half, and the Thunder's offense wasn't necessarily struggling by any means. I mean, they had points up there too. I think it was 77 to maybe 60 at halftime, something around there.
17-point lead. Yeah.
So it was the Spurs came out of the gates really, really hot, and defensively for the Thunder. And after talking to coach at halftime, it was just like we gotta have some individual pride and some team pride just to enforce our will defensively. And from the very first moment, the first play of the second half, the Thunder did just that.
Yeah, the Thunder ended up rushing back from what ended up being a 20-point deficit, and it was really like hitting singles after singles. So there wasn't like a barrage of 3-pointers that the Thunder hit. It wasn't like people playing outside of themselves. It was grinding down defensive stops. I think we saw in a few different scenarios guys who Mark Daigneault deployed. I think even the tide started to turn a little bit for the Thunder in the second quarter. Trey Mann made this incredible scrappy play where he just ripped the ball out of Trey Jones's hands defensively in a fast break situation. And then, in the second half, Mark Daigneault goes to Darius Bazley, and Baze ended up being an excellent secondary defender on Keldon Johnson. And in the second half, the Spurs just could not get anything going. All of their downhill motion was really denied. Lou Dort, Darius were great in terms of keeping Keldon Johnson's attacks to the rim like more pushed off to the side, and he was having to try angled layups that didn't have much of a chance. And then the Thunder responded on the other end by just like working through offense in a really productive way. They played with a full head of steam and got downhill and got to the rim to the tune of 70 points in the paint.
And we should mention one of the biggest, storylines going into this game. The Thunder was going to be without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, their leader in attacking downhill and getting to the rim. And so props to the Thunder for still sticking true to that identity that they have collectively as a team. And it doesn't really like hinge on one person. Of course, Shai does make that sort of outsized impact when he's in there, but the Thunder still able to get downhill, find their offense, and get that blender going. And the Thunder held San Antonio to just 34 points in the second half. That is a drastic difference from the first half where they put up 77. And so it speaks to it. Just they shut off the rim. They shut off the paint. They were pressuring full court with some intensity. It wasn't like just token pressure. There was like some actual intensity to their defense out in the full court. And it seemed like everybody that went into the game was just like, we're not allowing anything. We're done with you getting easy shots.
Yeah, I think the point that you made about no Shai was sensational, and the fact that the Thunder maintain that identity. To have a guy who averages like 24 out of your 68 drives a game, not in the lineup. Well, you're still managing to get that many drives. He's averaging 15 out of your 58 points in the paint per game. That's gone, and you still manage to get 70 points in the paint. I think that's the biggest commitment or example of the Thunder's commitment to playing the exact same style and the exact same brand of basketball, regardless of who is out there on the floor. And that's what's going to make this team a sustainable success in the future is you can withstand guys being in and out of the lineup if your style of play remains consistent and you're truly committed to that. And I think the same thing goes on the defensive end. Yeah. The Thunder may have been like, not had its eye on the ball defensively to start that game. Naturally, you're trying to put so much energy and ensure that you're executing offensively the way that you need to, sticking to that style, that you might take your eye off the ball defensively. Once they realized that they could get that down, they went to halftime, and as the Thunder always does, they've been the best third quarter team in the league all season. They come back out and they absolutely put the clamps on. And
everybody that stepped into the game for the Thunder scored. Yeah. That speaks to the balanced contributions that the Thunder got offensively. And Jalen Williams, J-Dub, out of Santa Clara, had a career night. He put up 27 points, but he wasn't out there, just pounding the ball. Nobody really was doing that for the Thunder offensively. A lot of his points came off of just cutting without the ball. Yeah. How many backdoor cuts did this guy finish on throughout this game? And it just speaks to, and the passes were coming from different people. It wasn't just Josh Giddey hitting him. No, Trey Mann hit him on one. I can't remember the other guys, but it speaks to how this team was able to generate their offense throughout the night.
How about that double clutch dunk on the baseline by J-Dub? I mean, just incredible.
Can we talk about his answer after the game? So he was asked about that dunk after the game, and he said, I just have insanely long arms, and I honestly didn't even expect myself to dunk it there. I was honestly surprised myself, and I was like, you can do that.
Must be nice.
I know, seriously. Exactly.
Yeah, so he cut baseline, and he caught the ball, and he was going up. Somebody came over to try to block it, and so he had to kind of tuck it back. And then as he went up again, he said he thought he was going to just lay it in. And then he realized as he's like almost under the rim, he was like, oh, my hands are
right here
at the rim, so I might as well just dunk it. So he, this is a guy that is still like growing into his body. He had such a late growth spurt. He didn't even get to, I think he was 6'1", like his senior year in high school. Well, now he's 6'6" with a 7'2" wingspan just a few years later. So still kind of getting adjusted to everything that he's capable of on the floor. And it's amazing foresight by the Thunder front office to have picked up on this guy in the draft process, later in the draft process, of course, just like everybody else, and to realize, hey, this is a lottery pick.
Yeah. So incredible performance by the Thunder, especially definitely in that second half against San Antonio. And it was a quick 1-game homestand for the Thunder because from now until the middle of December, they're on the road. They're gone. 5 games on the road is what's on tap for the Thunder. That means 2 weeks away from Paycom Center. But that kind of sets up pretty nicely because that means the Thunder's going to be home for a long time during Christmas.
Yeah, basically 3 straight weeks of home games between middle of December and the first week of January. So be ready to come on down to Paycom Center. Come join us for the holiday festivities. I love the way that the arena looks here
my gosh.
the holiday season. The trees, the tinsel, like just everything. It looks so beautiful in here. So you got to come down. You could come here and catch a few minutes of the game and still be like really entertained by everything that's happening inside this building. So this is one of the coolest places to be generally.
Oh yeah. You walk into a winter wonderland. Yeah. There's so much to do. And it's a fun time. Yeah. So while we're on the road, be sure to tune into Bally Sports Oklahoma so you can catch the action while the Thunder is away and then get on down to Paycom Center when the Thunder returns. All right. That wraps up this part of the episode. Don't go anywhere, though, because we have a very special segment coming up after this break, led by our Thunder VP, Dan Mahoney. Don't go anywhere.
COOP Ale Works is the proud sponsor of Thunder Basketball Universe. Brewers of the fan favorites F5 IPA and 99-calorie Ice Chest IPA. You'll find those and many more COOP beers at retailers across Oklahoma. Learn more at CoopAleWorks.com.
Well, on the Thunder Basketball Universe podcast, very often we stray a little bit from basketball because as an organization, the Thunder is more than just a basketball team. We're very connected to our community, and we like to tell the stories of our community, like to talk about issues that impact our community. We are just coming off of Native American Heritage Month, and as we did last year, we showcased the television show on Hulu FX, Reservation Dogs. It's produced within Oklahoma. One of its executive producers is an Oklahoman. Many of the cast are from Oklahoma, and it's a tremendous show. And it tackles, in addition to being funny and poignant and all those things, and terrific character development and storylines, it also addresses many of the issues within the Native American community. We are very fortunate to have with us two members of the cast of the show, Dalton Kramer.
Hello.
Why don't you talk a little bit about your character in the film, or in the show rather, and kind of how you see where your character has been over the 2 seasons of Reservation Dogs?
Well, my character is Daniel. I play one of the lost friends of the friend group, the Res Dogs. Lost them through a tragedy of a suicide, sadly. And it's cool to be a character that deals with something this heavy, because it kind of plagues, a lot of our families, our neighborhoods, our reses. It's a problem that we still, deal with, and it's just cool to show that, we're here and, we want to be heard, and it's good to show the kids are dealing with that problem, But through season 1, you see me a little bit in flashbacks, and in season 2, I would say kind of a dream sequence type way, and then another flashback. And then, I don't know. I don't even know how to, apparition type thing at the end. I don't even know I don't know what they were thinking with that one. But, I show up at the end and give them one last big hug and send them on their way.
Yep. Well, we'll talk more about that. I wanted to introduce our other guest, Lane Factor. Lane, now you both are from Oklahoma, correct? Okay. Lane plays the role of Cheese, and but you're both from Oklahoma, correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Dalton, you're from?
I'm from Seminole.
And Lane?
I'm from Oklahoma City.
Okay, terrific. So, Lane, you've been pretty much full-time cast since day one. How have you seen the character of Cheese develop? And how have you developed as an actor in that process?
So you see Cheese, he's just he's the little brother of the group. And in truth, he kind of stays that way throughout the show. But he kind of was just like the kind of brother who just went along with everything, who just kind of did everything he was told and was just, there and made some jokes here and there. But as the show goes on, you see him kind of come into more of his own character. He starts to discover what he wants to do for himself. And and even in season 2, you see him put into a situation where he can't fall back on his friends for help, and he has to get out of a situation and deal with the situation by himself. And so you just kind of see him becoming a little more independent, and also while still being that little brother that everyone loves. And he's always up to something.
I don't know how long a season has to go before we have to worry about spoiler alerts, but probably season 2 has been out long enough. We don't have to worry about that. So Lane, kind of talk about, and then Dalton obviously follow on this, like the issue of suicide, particularly suicide in the Native American community, and all the things that lead to that, whether it's mental health, whether it's alcoholism, whatever it happens to be. How did, obviously your writers, your producers put together the storylines, put together the script. How do you then take that and turn it into a performance within the acting framework?
You want to take
I mean, do you think about that when you're doing these roles, like you're speaking on a broader level to people, or are you?
Yeah, it's hard not to think that, especially Reservation Dogs, kind of a first of its kind of on TV. So especially doing that, and especially with my character dealing with its heavy parts, it's a big responsibility that you feel on set, especially with knowing that sometimes the character is based on real people, like such as my character is based on a real character, or not character but person, and sometimes their loved ones would come to set, and Sterling would tell me like, "Hey, Daniel's mom is here." And I was like, "Oh, dang, this is real. This is it's I don't know. It's just like I said, it's a responsibility that we have to hold up, and I'm just glad that we get to do that."
So television has always found a way to blend comedy with real life issues. In the 70s, the Norman Lear sitcoms were famous for that. Those were comedies actually had laugh track. And so they were true comedies, but they built in. How does it, like when you go to IMDb, it lists Reservation Dogs as a comedy. How do you think of it? Do you put a label on the show like that? I mean, it's funny. It's very well written, obviously, and does have moments of humor, which is part of its appeal. But it blends that humor with the serious issues and the treatment of the serious issues.
I mean, wait, would you really say that it would be like a drama? Because it's more of like a comedy drama, you know?
Yeah.
Because there's like a lot of, you do see some drama elements in there, but you also see a lot of comedy. You see a lot. Oh, excuse me. You see a bit of a couple of genres in the show, but I think comedy is kind of that one that a lot of people will see more. As when you see clips online, usually it's like a funny clip or something, but I think it is more of a comedy drama. So I kind of wish it did list both, because that's really what it is. But I don't really.
But is humor an important part of it? Do you think to be able to send that message in a way that can be appealing to people and then make them think?
Well, I think everyone loves to laugh, of course, but laughter in our community has been, I don't know, it's greatly upheld. Everyone loves to laugh. We love seeing everyone smiling. In some cultures, they keep note of the baby's first laugh. So laughter in Native American culture is very, I don't know, we hold it very close to our heart, as much as sadness and everything else. We make sure that we laugh through the pain, because what else are we gonna do?
I mean, a lot of the jokes in the show, are like a lot of the humor at times, it kind of stems from, trying to make light of a situation. You see that a lot happening in the show. You see a lot with how Native people actually are. Like a lot of times when someone passes away, a lot of the time we'll just sit around a table and we'll laugh about funny times we had with them, or just situations that, maybe seem a little grim, but we always try to make the best out of things. And you do see that a lot in the show. And like, that's kind of where a good chunk of the humor comes from.
What's been the reaction when you, particularly in Oklahoma, because you're both from here, to people, not just Native American Oklahomans, but just everybody? What's been the reaction to the show, to you guys, once they see you, they recognize you, or whatever it happens to be?
Well, everyone that meets me, they always tell me that the show is a very, very much an Oklahoman show. If you're, you'll get some of the jokes, but if you're from Oklahoma, you get all the jokes 100%. It's like, I don't know, it's having your own inside joke, but it's a show. It's basically what it is.
A few Thunder jerseys here and there too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thunder, OU.
Yeah. There's actually a pretty funny moment that really kind of told me, like, wow, this is really a show that was made for Oklahoma people. And that was, we were at the screening for season 2, it was the premiere for it. And there was a part where someone walked past a character. It was a Laura. She walked past a OSU jersey, and the whole theater started booing at it because most Native people are very OU, very very OU.
Yeah, I do remember that.
That's great.
That was out in Tulsa, actually.
And it was funny because we had some people from FX there, and they didn't understand, so they thought people hated the show for like 2 seconds, and
Just bedlam. Yeah. Lane, I don't know if you call it or people call it Cheese's sort of breakthrough episode, but the Stay Gold Cheesy Boy episode in the second season. Kind of talk about that a little bit. That was obviously, pretty predominantly your character, and kind of talk about that episode.
So in the episode, you see Cheese, just with his uncle. There's going about their day, and then, police force show up and they take Uncle Charlie away, and with Cheese having nowhere to really go, they put him into a boys' home, and they won't let him go anywhere else, and he loses access to like his phone and most of his belongings except for like his clothing and stuff. So you see throughout the episode what he's trying to do to kind of get used to the situation, trying to make the best he can of it without the aid of his friends, while his friends are trying to get him out of there, but he's trying to do everything the right way. And you see in the episode, he calls his grandma and he tells her that he's okay and doesn't really tell her about it. And also you just see kind of what it's like to be in one of those homes. And the whole episode is actually based on one of the writers. His name was Bobby. Is based about when he was the whole episode was based on his experience when he was in a boys' home. We were talking and he was telling me it's a very personal experience to him. So it was that bit of respect coming to the episode, and it's probably my favorite episode of the series, probably.
The interesting thing about that episode was the transition happened so fast. After the characters were in the store, and that happened, and then the highway patrol moves in. Next thing you know, there's Cheese in the home. What did you think of the way that was all put together? And do you consider that like you were the main character of that episode, and your whole role in your growth through 2 seasons, I think, got you to that point? How did you kind of feel about suddenly being the lead in an episode?
It's definitely a little surprising and also pretty nerve-wracking, because that was kind of the first time I've ever been like a kind of that main focal point of an episode. Now I've kind of been used to being, not being kind of a supporter, more of the support guy, but not really the main focus. I was really nervous, and I was really nervous about it. But after talking to Sterling and Devry, DeFaro, they're much more used to being like kind of that main front and center characters, and they helped me a bit with that, and also just kind of acting like it was just a normal episode, and that was just kind of a piece on me. But I think as the episode went on, as we were filming it, I kind of got more and more used to it and kind of slid into the role a little more, or the responsibility a little more. And I think that really helped me get me used to being kind of like the only one there and having to do things by myself a little bit.
Let's back up a little bit about each of you in your careers. Like, thought we'll start with you. Like, when did you start acting? When did you know you wanted to try this?
Well, whenever I, first wanted to start acting, it wasn't the main focal point of I didn't think I could do it, to be honest. I'm just some kid from Seminole, Oklahoma. You never see that on TV. And then one day my mom just calls me in her room. She's on Facebook and sees that they're having a casting call in Seminole. And I was like, okay, who's directing it? So she tells me Sterling Harjo, and Sterling Harjo is from Holdenville, so it's like 15 minutes away from Seminole. So of course I knew Sterling at the time because he came out with 2 movies, so it's kind of he kind of made it out. And then the other one was Taika Waititi, and of course I knew Taika Waititi from Jojo Rabbit, Thor Ragnarok, Hunt for the Wilder People, all that stuff, and I'm a really huge fan of his. So I said I'd do it. Went to the audition, met Sterling for the first time, and he asked me if I ever acted, and I was like, does drama class count? Or he's like, sort of. And I did the audition, and Sterling and Angelique, the casting director, they were both, I don't know, just stunned that I never acted before and I never wanted to do something like this. But yeah, that was my first ever acting experience, just doing that first audition. And then from that first audition to the next one, I met this dude out in Tulsa. And then he was with us for the rest of the auditions. But yeah, that was my experience, first acting and how I got into the show.
Lane, how about you?
Well, acting wasn't something I really kind of thought myself of ever doing, but I watched movies and stuff. And I was like, oh man, that would be so cool to be a part of that. But that's not something I never really thought of. But one day, my mom, she told me she signed my sister, my niece, and me up for acting class. And at first, I was kind of against it because, well, I just kind of really didn't want to do that. And I was already doing school at that time. But then going to the acting class, it was like every Thursday. I found it really enjoyable. I had a lot of fun doing that, and it was like a 14-week class. And then, so I got some experience with that. And then it's like at the end, they said they would put us on like an email list, and whenever something would come up, they would send everyone an email. I think it was literally 2 days later, they sent out an email like, oh yeah, they're having an open casting call for like a new TV show here in Oklahoma City. And at first I was a little skeptical about it. I was like, well, it's like at 9 a.m. on a Saturday. And
I don't blame you.
and I kind of want to sleep in, I can play games all day. But my mom, she made me go. She's told me she'd give me McDonald's. So I'm very easy to please.
That's what it takes, huh?
That's what it takes.
Thank you, McDonald's.
Yeah. So, but when we went there, that's where I met Sterling, Angelique Thunder, where she's head of casting. And talked to Sterling for a bit. He also asked me if I had any acting experience, in which I told him I did an acting class for like 14 weeks. But then they had me come back and read again. And then we went up to Tulsa. We had to do another reading like a week or two later. And that's where I met this guy. I actually talked to him for a while up there. And then they gave us more callbacks. And then next thing you know, we were in LA for like a final callback, and we met Tyke up there. And I was kind of surprised to see him there. I'm sure he was surprised to see me. And that's kind of where it ended now.
So you made a comment about Sterling that he got out.
Yeah, he made it out of Holmesville. Like, he's got 2 films under his belt, so it's like, once anyone does something like that, they made it out there.
Yeah.
I don't know. They just kind of put up on this pedestal. You probably hate me saying that, but yeah, he kind of was.
Yeah. Do you all feel a level of responsibility to the Native American community representing in such a show at a high level like that?
I mean, of course, especially with, it's based in Oklahoma. It's set in Oklahoma. It's just, I don't know, and meeting all the people I've been to, we have this thing, celebration in Seminole called Seminole Nation Days, and meeting all those people there and seeing how it impacted them, and seeing these little kids dressed up as Willie Jack or a Laura or a bear. It's I don't know, it's very heartwarming, and it's just it's just the reason why we do it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, like Dalton put it great, because it being here in Oklahoma, and being set in Oklahoma, and especially the show being set on a reservation and the topics it talks about, and you do have this responsibility, like, okay, I want to do this justice. This is kind of the first time, we're being seen in this kind of light. We don't want to, portray it wrong. We want to try to do it as the best we can. When we talk to people who live here, there's like, yeah, that's my favorite show. Can't wait for the next season. I see kids on Facebook dressing up as the characters for Halloween. It's the most heartwarming thing. Or sometimes we'll run into Native people just kind of walking on the street, and we'll just strike up conversation and talk for like 10, 20 minutes.
It's awesome. Well, you guys, thank you for joining us on the Thunder Basketball Universe. We know you're both big Thunder fans. I know you're going to be at the game against the Spurs. Mm-hmm. We had Lynn, you and your castmates were here last year. I know you had a great time, and just keep doing great work. Looking forward to season 3.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. It was fun.
Thank you so much, Dan, and to our very special guests. What an awesome conversation. And this was one of the many, many things that happened throughout the month of November, just within the Thunder basketball universe related to Native American Heritage Month. And there were some really awesome things that happened. And the Thunder's game against San Antonio was actually Native American Heritage Night inside of Paycom Center. So a lot of fun activations happening around the arena.
Yeah, Lane Factor and Dalton Kramer, who you just heard from, in addition to a few of their other castmates, were actually sitting courtside at the game last night against the Spurs. And great halftime act actually earlier in the day yesterday. 1,200 tribal students came into Paycom Center, and they had a great kind of demo day effectively of just all sorts of different things that they could do to pursue their careers, to pursue their dreams, just the different resources that are out there and available to them. So that was very cool to see, the youth being served in that way, and the Thunder giving back in that way. Earlier in the month, we've had 2 visits by Lindy Waters III to the First Americans Museum. And in fact, Shea Gildas-Alexander and Mike Muscala went there with him. Yeah,
so a lot of really fun, great, and intentional kind of activations by the Thunder and Thunder players to recognize and celebrate Native American Heritage Month. And we certainly do here as well on the TBU. But that wraps up today's episode. We want to thank you so much for watching and listening. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much to our producer, Matt Bishop. And until next time, Thunder up, and catch you later.